I was over the moon. I thought कि मेरी जिंदगी का सारा मकसद पूरा हो गया. Everyone wants a shorter solution. They want a quicker solution.
उसकी वजह है मतलब इतनी uncertainty में the only thing certain is cash.
हम हर किसी को blame करने के लिए तैयार हैं सिवाय अपने आप.
Where is all that money today? Where are those startups today? Each of them failed.
आप पिच पे खड़े रहें, सिंगल डबल करते रहें, आपको चौके छक्के की बॉल्स मिलेंगी.
Hello and welcome everyone to DigiTales. My name is Faizan Sayed, founder and CEO of East River, and today I have with me an extremely talented businessman who I think you will learn something very interesting from. He is the CEO of Elahi group of companies. He is a sponsor in Blue X, the big logistics company. He is going big on logistics investments. And most importantly, he is an avid marathon runner, a passion he discovered very recently and has become extremely good at. We're going to talk to him about all of this. How are you, Danish?
Very good. Thank you, Faizan. How you been?
Good.
Yeah.
Marathon running. You have made marathons sexy. You and this whole group of people. And you were just telling me that from the first time from Pakistan, 40 people are going to run the Berlin Marathon.
Yeah.
40 and 9 women.
And 9 of them are women. So I think in total, I think there are about 70 odd that are coming across. It's like from Pakistani origins, like living in the US,
Right.
living in Dubai, living all over. So 40 of them from Karachi are going to the Berlin Marathon in September 2023. And 9 of them are female athletes. So,
Wow.
so 9 of them are female runners. So it's about 25%
Yeah.
diversity. I
And
think हमारी नौकरियों में इतनी नहीं
businesses
diversity
में नहीं
होती,
होती,
business
exactly.
diversity में नहीं होती, and I think that's a great sort of marketing, and it's a great advert for not just running,
Right.
or not just marathon running, but it's a great advert for Pakistan as well. When they'll represent, they'll wear the Sports in Pakistan jacket, they'll
Right.
wear that flag on their chest, they'll be
Right.
running with that high spirit on the streets of Berlin. They're going to create some impact.
Absolutely.
And that's great for Pakistan. That's great for the positive image of Pakistan.
Right.
And you and I both know we could really do with some
With a little bit of positive imagery. So, but how did you get into it? I mean, like you didn't run.
No.
And first of all, marathon, just to clarify for everyone, is 42 kilometers.
Yeah, it's 42.
And you have to run 42 kilometers in one stretch.
Yeah.
And were you running 42 kilometers your entire life?
No, so I've always been into sports. So I've played squash for LSE. I've played a lot of cricket. I've
Right.
played a lot of other sports growing up, basketball. I've always been
Right.
into sports, right? I took up running, and I remember doing a 10K back in 2019. And
So very recently.
very recently, and
Right.
I love the timing because it came right before COVID, right?
Yeah.
So I remember when I did that, and I came home and I woke up my parents, like woke up my mother and my father, and I said, okay, listen, I've done a 10K. This is special. Get up, let's have breakfast. Right?
Yeah.
And they thought, what's this boy on about?
Yeah.
Right? So, and I remember thinking 10K was just, enormous. And I thought it was,
Yeah.
magnanimous at that time. And I thought 10K was like the milestone. And then the journey began. I found SVRC, which is a CV running club. I met Adnan, Faisal Shafi, and I found that calling, right? So
Right.
I found friends that I call my family now, call my brothers, my sisters. They're really, really close to me, right?
Right.
And once that happened, just it's something that I look forward to every Saturday morning. It's Saturday today. I
Right.
did my 24K in this
Right.
heat, 87%
Wow.
humidity. But it's my high, right? So it's something that gets me going for the week, and the entire sort of week revolves around work, family, and this. So it's a
So
great.
you've built your life around your running schedule now.
I think that
Because
would be
Saturday runs.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
I
and I've
think-
done a few with you guys. They're at 6 a.m.
yeah,
or sometimes 5:30.
yeah, 5 a.m. today. So
5 a.m. today
5
because of the heat.
because of the heat. I think it would be fair to say that it work. So the routine revolves around work, family,
Right.
and then this. So it's a I don't want to, it's a combination of these three.
Right.
So what happens is that I get to stay away from all the social lives of Karachi, which start at 10 p.m. and I sleep at 10 p.m.
Right.
So my normal sleep routine is sleep at 10 and wake up at 5 or 4:30.
So you are completely then out of socializing, because this is also now you're socializing. You've built a new community of friends.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
I think people who are hearing this and who know me would defer a little, because I love meeting people and I love interacting with people, so when they hear the fact that I'm acknowledging that I'm less social, they would laugh. So yes, I don't want to say that. I am pretty social. I love meeting people. I love exchanging ideas. So when you called me, I said, let's
why not?
Why not, right?
And how is this? I mean, obviously there's the thrill of running and pushing yourself and achieving new milestones, right? And just being outdoors and being with your thoughts. And I remember when I first did my half with you guys in December. And for me, I had the same thing. I told my parents, I said, you have to come and watch me get this thing, because I never thought I'd run 21 in my life. And it changes the way you look at things, right? How did this change the way you operate in business?
So here is my theory on marathon running, and excuse the little bit of science to it, right? So marathon is, as you said, 42.2 kilometers.
Right.
So when you do run that distance, there is something that we call hitting the wall at, and it comes different for different people, right? So it comes at 30, 32, can come earlier, come later. So it's hitting that wall. And that's mentally, you have to figure out a way to get past that and finish the race.
What does it feel like when you're hitting the wall?
So it just feels like your entire body is collapsing, right? So it's that body over mind, right? So you feel that your body has no more energy left in it. So it's got no more distance left in it. And you have to stop because your legs are cramping,
and the gels that you're carrying, none of that works.
And that's the discipline part of it, right? So to be a successful marathon runner, I think the key traits around it are discipline. Not just the 42 kilometers. You're running 1,000 kilometers before you turn up on race day, right? So it's that discipline of that training. Second is the entire training regime, not just running, but your gyms, your exercise, your strength training. So there's a lot of, and what you eat. So there's a lot of discipline around the rest of your routine as well. And second is high endurance, right? So if you're a businessman in Pakistan, and you'd know this, especially in this, in this economic crisis climate, this fun environment, right? What it needs is that perseverance, right?
Yeah.
You can't just, get up the next day and say, Tala laga do yaar, kaam pe bas aur nahi karna.
Yeah.
You have to persevere through it. You have to come in, every day and in extreme situations and be like, you know what, tomorrow is going to be a better day. I think entrepreneurship, if you look at the definition of it, you just have to be an optimist, right?
Yeah.
So this whole marathon has given me that perspective where discipline with a big bunch of optimism, you can do this, right? And then you push boundaries. So if you're running a distance in 4 hours, then you do it in 3 hours 45, then you do it in 3:30, then you do it in 3:15. So that's something that I really enjoy about it. And another thing that we all talk about as entrepreneurs, right? You learn from your failures, right? So you always fail and then you get up and pick up again. There's a friend of mine, and a very close friend of mine. He did in Istanbul, Sadiq, I'm sure you know him. So he did a 3 hour 21 in Istanbul, and he was really gutted about it. He was gunning really well, and he was, he's doing
321
really well.
is great though.
He's very well. And he was gutted about it. And he did London this year, and he did a 2:55.
Okay, wow.
So, and he trained for it. So
Right.
it wasn't just that he wanted to do that. So it is, he hit that wall and he couldn't get past that when it came to Istanbul. And he fixed that. It was that race day that made him realize what he did right, what he did wrong. And then he came back again 6 months later and he crossed the barrier big time, right? So sub 3, Boston qualified. And he's over the moon about it. And so are we, right?
Right.
And another thing that I like about marathons is that I'm not beating you or you're not beating me. So I'm not running against you. There are 50,000 people running a big major marathon.
Right.
They're all running for themselves.
Right.
They're all competing with themselves.
Right.
I mean, if I come 10,000 or I come 12,000 or 15,000.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I did it in 3:17. I was over the moon. I thought that meri zindagi ka sara maqsad pura ho gaya.
Right.
And I know somebody who did it in 4 hours, he felt the same.
Right.
I know somebody who did it in 4.5 hours, he felt the same.
Right.
So it's all about you pushing yourself and competing with yourself.
Right.
Which is another great attribute that I find very important for my entrepreneurial journey, because it's all about how I want to do this business, what boundaries or what goals am I setting for myself, as opposed to यार वो बैरिया में प्लॉट ले रहा है तो मुझे भी दो वहीं पे लेने चाहिए, वो गवादर में काम कर रहा है तो मैं भी दो वहीं पे लेता हूँ. So it's not about following what that person is doing. It's about just competing with yourself, just pushing yourself to do better.
Right.
So there are a lot of things around it.
There are parallels in business.
Absolutely.
And let's come to business for a second. You've been on a bit of a roll with what you've been up to, and as I understand it, your family business was basically around high cost debt instruments, given out, to other businesses. And you've taken that and evolved it with time, and let's say, I think it was in 2020, you acquired a textile company, rebranded it as, I believe, Kodorba.
Yep.
And are now going more into the logistics side, and you've been in warehousing as well. Yep. So walk me through how a family business that is on the, let's say, debt instrument side gets into logistics, buys a textile, and also buys Blue X, or a stake in Blue X.
Yep.
And is now partnering up with Abhi, the financial company. What is the game plan?
I think so. You're right to ask all these questions, and I think it's been an interesting journey for sure. So I think I'll walk you through that journey.
Yeah.
And it dates back to mid 1970s, right? So when my father and my uncles, my chachas,
right,
their father, my dada, Danish Elahi, shifted to Pakistan from East Pakistan. So we were a family based out of East Pakistan, and we were into textile. And when we came here, we were, like many other families, we left a lot of our assets back in Bangladesh and East Pakistan back then. And we came and we started from humble beginnings in the 70s.
Right.
A shop out of Lucky Star, Sadar, where my grandfather and my father and my uncles, his brothers, started. And that journey sort of continued for a very long time. And we were into commodity trading, we were into electronics. So our parent company used to be Elahi Electronics.
Right.
And that was, we represented Esta and Presto and Sabro defreezers back then.
Right.
So we were, we had a journey where we were into electronics. We pivoted into commodity trading around the early 2000s, late 90s. And जहाँ आपने warehousing की बात की, so my Sohail Chacha built the first warehouse in 1998, जो हमने Jazz Mobiling back then को दिया था. And I remember my father, and this is a story that we keep hearing around, and he had to really push himself to get this approval to build a warehouse on our, on our land bank in Kurangi. And since then, we've not looked back. So we have about substantial warehousing space now. We keep adding on to that month on month, year on year. So let me give you a perspective, right? So Pakistan में SME financing हो नहीं सकती, क्योंकि आप जब बैंक के पास जाते हैं, वो बोलते हैं collateral दो. Collateral भी नहीं कि property दो, फिर property दो, and it's a lot of name based work that they're doing, right? So, and a lot of SMEs, most of the SMEs don't have that, right? So SMEs need inventory based financing. What they say is कि यार उनके पास एक प्रोडक्ट होता है जो अच्छी दामों पे बिकता है, जो इनकी डिमांड होती है और उसकी सप्लाई भी होती है, और उनकी, and there's a lot of demand led businesses in Pakistan. देखो 25 करोड़ की आबादी है, so demand has never been an issue for Pakistan. So based around that, so logistics becomes a key area, because आज भी cash on delivery जो COD है, आज भी अगर मैं 100 पार्सल डिलीवर करता हूँ तो 70 से 75 पार्सल कैश ऑन डिलीवरी पे सेटल होते हैं. आज भी आपके घर में फूड पैंडा आता है तो आप उसको कैश प्रेफर करते हो या कैश दे दो. इसकी दो वजूहत हैं. One, which is more so for us, is there's a trust deficit. So I don't know when I'm ordering from a website whether it's a genuine product, whether I like it, the size would be right. So to offset that trust deficit, we say कि यार जब आएगा तो we'll just open it and we'll settle in cash. But there are there's a big segment of our market that is untaxed, and we keep talking about that.
True.
In the economic circles, and
right.
And the non-taxpayers, and so they prefer to settle in cash because they don't want banking transactions to have that. So essentially, what happens is that you now have an inventory which is being managed by BlueX. Then you have a closed-in cash cycle that is being managed by our riders who are delivering to the end product. And we are then returning that cash to the sellers through the banking channels.
So let me take a step back.
Yeah.
If I am the business owner, if I'm the business owner, let's say I want to sell iPhones, right? You will give me financing to go buy the iPhones, right? As a financier, you will put the iPhones in your warehouse. BlueX will take those iPhones and let's say deliver them through, let's say whatever online shop I have, or I have an e-commerce store that I'm selling it through, collects the cash and then gives me the cash.
Correct.
So technically you are protected the entire way.
So it's a closed-end loop, right? So it's a closed-end loop that we manage. And I think in order to cater for that, we created this platform, BlueX, where we partnered an equity stake with Abhi, which is the largest fintech in the country.
Right.
They have the largest balance sheet. They just raised a 2 billion rupees sukuk.
Right.
They are the most advanced in terms of their technology, in terms of their execution. So now we've almost made this inventory and revenue-based financing a homogeneous product. It is irrespective of your property bank or your collaterals, as long as you have a product to sell and there are spreads, yani ke margins, 100 rupees ka kharid rahe ho, 125 ka bech rahe ho, 100 rupees ka kharid rahe ho, 150 ka bech rahe ho. If you have those positive margins and you have a demand function that you're able to sell those, you have a financing product available for Abhi and BlueX as a combination to offer to you. That I feel is the biggest contribution that, at least from my perspective, I made to the SME sector or the economic sector in Pakistan. And I'm very proud of that, because that essentially means that SME sector, which represents about 60-65% of our GDP, has now gotten access to finance, which has been missing. आप इन्फ्लेशन देखें, 40% की इन्फ्लेशन है, इंटरेस्ट रेट्स 20-22% के हो गए. So your working capital requirements are increasing by the day, not even by the month. आपको अगर 100 रुपए चाहिए थे by SPI index or whatever index, आज आपको 150 रुपए चाहिए. Your banking lines don't increase that way. Your wealth is not increasing in the same way. In fact, if you look at it in dollar terms, your wealth is decreasing.
Right.
So now you have this platform where you're able to execute those growth journeys that you have a potential for through this access to finance.
But how is this finance cost compared to what, let's say, a bank would give? Which, fine, I understand the SMEs would not have access to anyways, right?
Correct.
Because collateral nahi hai inke paas.
Correct.
But let's say you said 20-22% interest rate. What is the cost here?
I think the cost is,
is it higher than 22%?
It is much higher than 22%.
It is much higher. So it's north of 30% annualized.
No, so north of 30% annualized. And then the reason for that is very simple, right? So let's break it down.
Right.
So on the outside, it seems like 30 ले रहा है, बहुत ज़्यादा है, right?
Yeah.
I shouldn't do this, right? Let's break it down a little. 100 रुपए की चीज़ है, आप 120 रुपए की बेच रहे हो और 3 महीने में आपका कैश साइकिल, यानी कि you're making a 20% margin on your sale of product in 3 months.
तो इसको annualize कर दूं times 4 हो जाएगा, 80% हो गया.
80% हो गया. Now, what 2 options are you faced with? One, don't do it because you don't have access to capital.
Right.
Or the other is sell your equity at a reduced valuation because you see a potential growth in the coming years.
Right.
So you're selling much cheaper than what your potential valuation could be.
Right.
Or the third is access this inventory-based financing from NBFCs and this platform that is available out there in the market, and that stimulates your growth journey as it goes on. Rather than viewing this as a high-cost borrowing for SMEs, you should look at it as, without liquidating, without diluting your equity, you have now the potential for executing your growth journey by accessing this platform for both just logistics and financing under the same umbrella. So it's a bit of a turnkey solution as well, right?
Right.
The same platform is offering you inventory management,
correct,
last mile deliveries, and access to finance. So it is also a boutique service that is now being offered in the market, and I think, but no other platform has that equity partnership. So they're not locked in. So there are a lot of logistics companies that have partnered with some banks or some logistics company are using their own balance sheet to do this. but they don't have that scalability or that platform that they've created, which we were able to execute by the fact that we were the only listed logistics company in Pakistan when we listed BlueX on the GEMS board back in 2021. So the journey has just begun, right? So the journey is to make sure that we are able to provide this product for the growth journey for the ecosystem in the country, while increasing our logistics and footprint and the last mile footprint. And I think the journey has just begun, because if you look at it this way, and this is how I'll say it, our birth is only 2 years old. So our journey began when we went public. So we have a higher corporate governance structure. We have KPMG as our internal auditor. So we've now gotten, and we have some really strong names on our board that really lead that strategy forward, from Mirza Kamar Beg to my father, Arif Elahi. We led PNSC to, really strong highest ever profits. He's the chairman of the board. We have Nadine Malik, who's ex-CEO of Javago. She runs Civils. Asfandyar Farooq, he sits on the e-commerce board, and he's got his own business that he's running. Then we've got Ali Baksa Musa and Imran, who's the CEO, and he's really leading that that journey forward. And then, obviously, it's all being held together with our CFO, Salman Amin. So there are a lot of people that, how service sector is. Right?
Yes.
Service sector is about the people behind it.
Correct.
And I think I was lucky to get all these really strong execution names behind this platform to be able to deliver that product that I feel has a strong potential in Pakistan going forward.
And so when I look at it now, it makes it a lot clearer. Like for an SME, you're giving a turnkey solution. You're telling the SME, you just focus on sales and marketing. Just get the customer, do the marketing. We will, once you hand the customer to us, we will take care of the rest. In fact, we'll even give you the product.
Absolutely.
We'll buy you the product, we'll house the product, we'll deliver the product, we'll collect the money, we'll even give you the money. Just get your sales and marketing right.
100%.
And so that suddenly for me is like, oh wait, you've just taken away most of my headache. Sure, you are expensive.
Yeah.
But then what is my other alternative? There is none. Because if I am a startup, or if I'm an individual, I'm a recent grad from IB, and I'm like, I want to start this trading business. और मुझे चीजें अच्छी मिल रही है मार्केट से, and I know I have a customer base, फिर मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है, तो बैंक तो नहीं देगा पैसे उसको.
बैंक तो नहीं देगा.
तो वो जाएगा कहाँ? या तो वो किसी लोन शाह के पास जाएगा, क्या मुझे हाई इंटरेस्ट पे दो, वो सारा अनरेगुलेटेड है. ये एक प्रॉपर स्ट्रक्चर्ड मॉडल है जहाँ पे वो क्लीन तरीके से एंड टू एंड सोल्यूशन मिलेगा.
And I think I credit my partners here with Abhi. They're really progressive.
Right.
Because your product is as good as the execution, right?
True.
So I give both the team at BlueX and the team at Abhi a lot of credit because their execution is on point. Hence, this solution makes sense and is able to make that mark in our ecosystem.
Right.
Dekho, when we went public, a lot of people criticize us for going public and going down the GEMS board or the PSX route, as opposed to going down the venture capital route, because that was high growth, high valuations, a lot more money in terms of dollars and converting to rupees. So they're like, yaar, ye kis journey pe ja raha? Like in 2021, you could see that the interest rates were rising, right? So the inflation was going high, so interest rates were going to rise to curtail inflation. So Aaj, the market is completely dry for venture capital, liquidity.
Right.
Plus the macros of our country, the dollar situation, the high debt situation doesn't help us either.
Right.
So we are now got to find solutions that are outside the box and within the domestic ecosystem.
How does the GEMS board help in that case?
GEMS board is...
What is the GEMS board for those who don't know?
So GEMS board, for me, how I define it, is a pre-IPO event. It's not an IPO because it has very restrictive trading policy. So it has...
So I can't buy your shares.
You can, but you'll have to go through, have to prove that there's a high net worth element behind it. So you have to prove that, I think the benchmark is you have to prove that you have a 5 million rupee worth for you to be able to execute the trade. So
because it's high risk trade?
High risk trade. So it's a pre-IPO event.
Got it.
So the liquidity element is low, but you get access to that capital that has been missing. So you create that platform where if अगर आपके पास 1-1.5 साल में आप मेन बोर्ड पे आप ग्रेजुएट करते हैं, so there is a it gets you onto that path where you'll become a fully listed company in a couple of years.
I see. So it's basically like an IPO training ground.
It's an IPO training ground.
For the company as well as for the investor, क्योंकि वो investor कह रहा है ठीक है ये high risk company है, let me see how they do and if I want to continue investing in it.
So it's like a private equity investment.
ठीक है.
Pre-IPO, but with an added benefit of having that liquidity through the PSX.
And so basically I can, and it's smaller ticket sizes.
It's smaller ticket size.
And they're
higher
tradable.
corporate governance.
Okay.
So because PSX is and the SEC regulates, so you have the higher corporate governance. So it gives those shareholders or the investors
the visibility,
higher comfort.
Right.
Returns up, our accounts are published every 3 months. So
Sure.
It gives those investors, you don't have to chase the founders up. Ki yaar, management accounts, management accounts. So they're monitored and the deadlines around it.
Right.
And those come through that structure. There's a board in place. There's some internal audits in place. So you get all the benefits with that excess. It's a lot quicker to go to the market through this platform. So a lot of SMEs should start exploring this as a IPO or liquidity event. A lot of a lot of companies have this misconception that this is the IPO event. I'd like to clarify this, and I'll use your platform here. It's not an IPO event because it's like 2 steps away from an IPO.
Right.
So you do this event, you create the platform, you get your house in order, and then you graduate to the main board, which is the essential IPO.
But most companies don't follow this path. We don't hear about others following a path like this. They go straight into an IPO event.
I think
this is not typical,
yes,
is what I'm
you're
saying.
right.
And which is maybe why the perception is there, because we don't hear about this with others.
हाँ फैजान, I think उसकी वजह टाइमिंग भी है. उसकी वजह 3 चीजें हो सकती हैं, 2-3 चीजें हैं. तो मैं let's touch upon all these 3 things.
Right.
One is this misconception. Pakistan की जो main board है is trading at a 3 times multiple to earnings. So it's trading at a ridiculously low valuation.
Right.
So a lot of people think about it कि यार जब वो main board 3 के multiple पे रह रहा है तो हमारी क्या valuations हमें मिलेंगी. So it's a function of them underselling themselves कि यार main board की valuations इतनी कम है तो we will not get the right price. So they don't go, and that discourages them to go down this route. So that's the first route. Second is that you bear in mind 2021 was a great year for venture capital funding in Pakistan.
Right.
So a lot of companies who have a strong potential have made serious inroads into the business side in Pakistan, have that high valuation fundings that are already been done by the investors in 2021. So किसी की अगर $20 million की valuation है और जब आज PSX पे जाएगा तो उसको $5 million की valuation मिलेगी. So that's another discouraging factor. They want to say कि यार let's just stay here.
Right.
Because अगर हम 20 की 5 पे जाएंगे तो हमारे investors will throw a fit, right?
ठीक है, fair enough.
Sorry for using that language.
It's digital. You can say anything.
So that's a big discouraging factor. So what I say to people is that this is not a permanent sort of structure, right? Valuations भी ठीक होंगी. जो 2021 का capital है वो dry out हो जाएगा. There'll be a lot of runway between those events of high valuation and a lot of dry period in between. So people will need to find that valuation or they need to raise capital. So that need for capital is going to come in a couple of years. So they need to start preparing, start evaluating, then start looking at this journey, because it's not a switch on, switch off kind of journey. It takes about 6 months to get across the line for that journey, right? So you've got to start planning for that journey for you to be in a position to execute it when the time is right.
So you've got this ready. You've basically prepared for it so that when the time is right, you're ready to go.
Correct. Absolutely.
And you come guns blazing out the door. Why doesn't anyone else follow this format? We don't hear about this approach with other companies that go into an IPO. Or are they following this approach? Maybe you would know better.
I think fundamentally, अगर मैं थोड़ा सा फैजान इसको let's take a step back, right? So पाकिस्तान में हम हर किसी को blame करने के लिए तैयार हैं सिवाय अपने आप को. हम तरक्की नहीं कर रहे क्योंकि मुल्क की मैक्रोस ठीक नहीं है. हम वैल्यूएशंस नहीं ले पा रहे क्योंकि PSX की वो चीज़ें ठीक नहीं हैं. I think that self-confidence or we should look at ourselves to get, we'll do this, right? So this is our country, this is our economy, we got this, and we're here to stay, we're not going anywhere. Let's make hay of this situation and figure out.
So it's like in marathon running, you said it's like hitting the wall. You want to get past the wall.
I want to go past the wall, blazing, right? So right. I want to, speed past that wall.
Yeah.
मैं लोगों को अक्सर ये कहता हूँ यार देखें, it's not about two sides to a coin or the grass is green on the other side. ये वाली बातें नहीं है. I think आज आप focus करें अपनी execution पे. आज आप focus करें अपनी longevity पे. आप पिच पे खड़े रहें, सिंगल डबल करते रहें, आपको चौके छक्के की बॉल्स मिलेंगी. But if you go in and say कि यार आज मैं अफरीदी वाली इनिंग खेलूंगा, you will get out more often than not. आज आप get into this structure for a longer term sustainability of your business. BlueX was a platform that was created. Abhi's joined that platform, joined hands with that platform, not for a year, इसको bubble को फुला के, offload कर दें एक साल में. I'm here to create the legacy of this structure for the next 10 years. That's how I look at this platform.
Right. Interesting.
That part is missing. In our DNA भी पूछ लें या हमारे business ethos में कह लें, वो part थोड़ा सा missing है.
Everyone wants a short term win.
Everyone wants a shorter solution. They want a quicker solution. They want, एक हमें कहते हैं ना सट्टे की आदत है.
वो उसकी वजह है, मतलब इतनी अनसर्टनिटी में the only thing certain is cash. ठीक है, तो if I have cash, I can power through any political or economic uncertainty that this country has to offer.
I think, Faizan, let's put it this way, right? So would you rather buy something at a 3, if you were to invest in the PSX today, would you rather invest in it when it's trading at a 3's multiple or a historical average of 8, 9?
That's a no-brainer.
That's a no-brainer, right? So that thought process needs to convert into actions.
Right.
And when you say that to a lot of people, they say कि यार we're already in it with long term and our portfolio is down 35-40%. तो हम कैसी बातें कर रहे हैं? You're right. It is. That's an actual fact. But that portfolio was supposed to create value over a 10-year horizon, on a 7-year horizon, or a 5-year horizon. That portfolio was not supposed to create value on a 2-year horizon. So you have to remain committed to that journey. For new entrants, come in at 3 and then enjoy the journey when it comes about. Let's go back to the SME sector that we were talking about, and that's something that's passionate to me as a businessman. हमारे पास आज जो ये अभी और ये BlueX और this platform for inventory financing and revenue financing जो create हुआ है, you will see, and inshallah this is my hope and ambition, that you will see a lot of unicorns coming through this structure, or not coming through this structure, unicorns being made in Pakistan that have utilized this service. Once that happens, that will define the success of this structure.
Who is your biggest customer of the structure today?
I think we've done some work with Back Gallery. They've got some good product. They're a good seller, and they're and then we have a lot of other SME sectors.
They're 100% reliant on this structure?
Not 100% reliant, because they've raised their own capital. They have their own liquidity. They have their own equities that they're plugging through, funneling through the system. So so it's a mix of debt and equity, right? And they try and keep the debt portion to as minimum as they can and keep the equity portion high. And that's how the structure is successful.
Right.
Because if you go all debt, then you essentially just whatever you earn, it's bleeding away.
Yep.
So there are वही वाली बात है ना कि ये पता तब चलेगा 3 साल बाद when companies go from being a normal company to high unicorns. I want to give this example जो आपने बात भी की, and you asked this whether this is the right product or not.
Right.
और उसकी success कैसे पता चलती है. So let me give you an example of a company without taking its name, because I haven't spoken to them or and it's not right to name. एक कंपनी थी जो लिस्टेड थी स्टॉक एक्सचेंज पे, उसकी 2012 में उसकी शेयर प्राइस थी ₹2, ठीक है, and we were doing a lot of supply chain with them. There was a lot of inventory that we had of them. There's a lot of warehousing that we were giving them. उस कंपनी की शेयर वैल्यूएशन by November 2015 was 100+.
Wow.
उनकी सेल 12-13 बिलियन से 27 बिलियन पे चली गई.
Just by following a model like this.
By just following this, partnering with a company that was able to increase their volume. क्योंकि उनका प्रोडक्ट बिकता था. ऐसा सकती है 25 करोड़ की आवाम है,
माल
बिकता है, ठीक है. सो इट्स जस्ट अबाउट हाउ मेनी एंड हाउ वेल कैन यू फर्निश इट. एंड नॉट जस्ट माल बिकता है, बट ऑल्सो आप सोचो कि आप जब बल्क खरीदोगे एज अपोज टू छोटे
मार्जिन्स
वैसे इंक्रीज हो जाएंगे. सो दैट वी हैव ऑलरेडी टेस्टेड दिस स्ट्रक्चर विद कंपनीज. बट जो मेरी और आपकी लैंग्वेज है वो है यूनिकॉर्न्स की, कि यार इस SME सेक्टर से या इस वैल्यूएशंस में से कौन यूनिकॉर्न बन रहा है.
राइट.
अब हमने ये एक नई फील्ड में हम आए व्हिच इज द SME सेक्टर. उसमें जब यूनिकॉर्न बनेगा तो पता चलेगा कि हाँ यार ये प्रोडक्ट
चलेगा या नहीं,
चलेगा कि नहीं चलेगा.
और ऐसा जो मॉडल है दुनिया में और कहाँ पे है?
हर जगह
ये है, एग्जिस्ट करता है.
So if you go, देखो हमने I was in London. I was working. I'm a chartered accountant by profession, so I was working for KPMG.
Right.
Everything happened on financial models. Everything happened on cash flows. Everything happened on repayment capacities.
Correct. It's all EBITDA.
It's all EBITDA. It's all about repayment capacities.
Absolutely.
And that's it. That is the entire model of how financing happened.
Correct.
That's how acquisitions are
absolutely
funded.
Right.
That's how leverage buyouts happen. That is the entire ethos of how debt or any sort of investment happens in, at least I can speak for the London market, and I'm sure that's...
And the US is like it as well. It's just that this market, there's a connotation around debt. ठीक है, शायद Islamic connotation है या जो भी है. मतलब लोग उस तरह से सोचते नहीं है debt के बारे में.
आप बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं. And I'm really glad you touched upon the Islamic element. So these structures that we have prepared are 100% Sharia compliant. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because this is all about inventory.
And that's risk.
And that's risk.
Because the customer might not buy.
Customer might not buy. I might end up
So there is no... So technically there is... In a sense, there is a fixed rate of return. Sure, you are charging a fixed rate of return. So that's the biggest challenge in the debt instruments in the Islamic work. यार आप fixed rate of return कैसे दे सकते हैं? लेकिन in this case, you're taking a big risk कि कल को ये जो जिसकी मैं inventory खरीद रहा हूँ और deliver कर रहा हूँ, अगर इसने sales और marketing सही नहीं की और customer खो दिया, तो मैं तो I'm stuck with all of this inventory.
देखिए, आपकी बात में थोड़ा सा फिक्स्ड वाले एलिमेंट को पहले एड्रेस करते हैं. सो देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग अबाउट फिक्स्ड है तो अनइस्लामिक. ठीक, ऐसी बात होती नहीं है. वजह क्या है कि ऑफर एक्सेप्टेंस इज द की डिनोमिनेशन फॉर ए ट्रांजैक्शन टू बी इस्लामिक. जिस तरह हम हलाल करते हैं ना, हलाल का सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट जो कॉनोटेशन और जो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट इंग्रेडिएंट इज हाउ द स्लॉटर हैपेंस.
करेक्ट.
It's not how it's cut. It's not how how does the slaughter happen. That's the difference between being on the right side of halal or not. Same thing with Islamic finance. A lot of this is an open-ended debate. So I'm sure when people hear this podcast, you will get inundated. Danish is talking, complete rubbish and complete. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And they probably are right. I'm giving my theory or my version to this.
Yeah.
And my version may not necessarily be 100% accurate or correct.
Right.
But I'll give you mine anyways.
Right.
Offer acceptance happens day one. Means the risk transfers from party A to party B day one.
Right.
अब मैं उसकी जब risk transfer हो गया तो मैं उसकी settlement किस basis पे करूँ? मैं उस पे ऊपर 100 रुपए की चीज ली, मैं 105 की बेचूँ. ये मेरी it's my prerogative. The reason why we say it's fixed is because it gives transparency of information to bilateral trades. मैंने और फैजान ने ट्रेड करनी है तो मैं हर बार नेगोशिएशन करूं या हमारा एक प्राइसिंग मॉडल
तय हो गया.
तो वो प्राइसिंग मॉडल तय हो गया तो क्या होगा कि मुझे और फैजान को हर बार एक फ़ोन कॉल करके या ईमेल करके निगोशिएशन नहीं करनी. वो एक प्राइसिंग मॉडल तय है, तो जब मैं फैजान से चीज़ खरीदूंगा और मैं बाजार में बेचूंगा तो मेरी एक प्राइसिंग मॉडल तय है, मैं उसको फॉलो करूंगा.
ठीक है.
क्या ये फिक्स तो नहीं है? क्या ये गलत तो नहीं है? हाँ, प्राइसिंग मॉडल तय है तो ये फिक्स्ड हो गया. दैट ट्रेड डजंट बिकम अन-इस्लामिक, राइट? एक ये, एंड द फैक्ट इज, देखिए, let me put it this way, I'm not the most smartest guy when it comes to Islamic, Sharia.
Right.
And I'm actually just beginning to be a student. What I do right, and I pride myself in doing it, and I can, कि मैं जो एक्सपर्ट हैं उनसे ओपिनियन लेता हूँ, और वो ओपिनियन जब देते हैं तभी वो ट्रांजैक्शन करता है. And many times I have to tweak the transaction to make it Islamic.
Okay.
It's the same thing. आप हलाल सर्टिफिकेट देते हैं तो आप आगे सवाल नहीं पूछते.
True.
आप जाते हैं किसी रेस्टोरेंट में, आपको सर्टिफिकेट आता है,
पीछे क्या हो रहा है किसी को क्या पता.
So this is a very controversial conversation we've just had in the last 5 minutes. So if you get
but the summary of it is that, okay, so as I take it and as I understand it, you're saying that for it to be Islamic, so the fixed, okay, from what I understand is fixed rate of return is just for ease of doing business, so that we don't have to negotiate every time that there is a capital transfer.
Correct.
Right? It is not that I am guaranteeing you a fixed rate of return let's say as a lender. Right? I'm just saying, I don't want to negotiate with you every time. It's 5%, 15, 50%, whatever it is. Let's just lock that. You're like, yes, done, locked. I'll build my model with it. It's done. But the perception is, I as a lender am getting, no matter what you do, that fixed return, whether it's 15 or 50% every single time. So I have technically as a lender, I don't have risk.
Correct.
So that part becomes un-Islamic, but in reality, I do have, in this case, I'm just talking about this, I'm not talking about a bank. There is risk because I have bought your inventory. It is sitting in my warehouse. You are maybe giving me 30% or 40%, whatever you charge.
That's the pricing.
That's the pricing for me buying all of this and facilitating you. And tomorrow, if you mess up and you don't find that customer to offload this inventory to, I am left holding a whole bunch of iPhones that I may now have to find customers to offload, and I'll have to offload it at a discount.
Correct.
Killing my entire profitability.
Correct.
Which, by the way, was very well priced. So I don't think I'll lose money, but I will deal with a lot of headaches.
And correct. And
that's what makes it Islamic.
Absolutely.
As I understand it.
I mean, yes, but let's not pass verdicts here, because it gets very tricky.
Right. Of course.
And
I mean,
so
there's experts there.
There are experts there.
So we'll let them tell us.
Let them tell us. But I think also,
maybe I should get the Islamic finance expert next.
I can recommend a few, and they're really good.
Yeah.
So we work very closely with Mufti Najib. I consider him like an elder brother.
Okay, maybe we get him on the podcast.
He's a great guy, and you speak to him, you really enjoy it. He's a great guy, and you should get him on board.
Yeah.
He may be able to explain this a lot better than I would. And it's also about partnerships, right? So it's also about 100 रुपए की चीज़ है, 50 मेरे, 50 तुम्हारे. मेरा ये रिटर्न है, तुम्हारा जितना बेचोगे तुम्हारा रिटर्न है, क्योंकि बेच तुम रहे हो, मार्केटिंग तुम्हारी है, प्लेटफॉर्म आपका है, सेल्स एक्सपर्टीज आपकी है. So I think that's another way to look at it. So मैंने 100 रुपए के प्रोडक्ट के पूरे 100 रुपए नहीं दिए. मैंने 50 दिए होंगे, 60 दिए होंगे, 70 दिए होंगे.
ठीक है, makes sense.
तो वो, I think this is a long-ended conversation to, and...
But what I like about it is that now, right, anyone, anywhere, I mean, I think, again, every now and then I interact with a lot of kids at colleges, and they're all asking about how do I start a business?
Yeah.
And where do I raise money? And I don't have money. And I want to raise money, VC, private equity, blah, blah, blah. You solve their problem. Especially if it's, let's say, a product or commodity-driven business. Service-driven business would be different, but this solves that problem. And it solves it even for the smallest guy who just wants to start with maybe 5 lakh rupees. And says कि मैं 5 लाख रुपए के, let's say, तौलिए खरीद रहा हूँ, और मैंने एक ऑनलाइन तौलिया वेबसाइट बना ली, and I'm just selling towels for, printed towels in red color, whatever.
Yeah.
So you're like, sure, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
So I think that is, actually, you should run a marketing campaign at colleges. That's where you should be marketing this. Because the opportunity is in that student who currently does not know how to get it off the ground. And they're going to their parents and asking for money or for friends, and they have very limited capital.
You're right. And I think once that awareness comes in, it will trickle down to those levels quite
Quickly,
quite quickly. And I think it's just about trying to create that awareness top down.
Right.
And hopefully one day, why not?
Yeah. Interesting. And so 5 years out, let's say, forget 5, let's do 10. 10 years out, we're sitting, let's say, right here. 10 years out.
Yeah.
What will you be telling me about this entity? What do you hope to be telling me about this entity?
Suri entity ka yo. I would have hoped to have traveled 100 countries, hoped to have gotten my 6-star marathon medal.
Right.
And that would have been my first focus. Ki yaar, ye do kaam zarur ho jaye.
Right. 100 countries, all 6 marathon medals.
All 6 marathon medals.
And
the
this is
6-star, the Berlin, Chicago, New York.
Yeah.
So ye ho jaye, touch wood,
So actually, business is not first. It's the travel, it's the running, and then
that's the passion, right?
Right.
That's the passion.
Right.
So the running and the traveling is the passion where that.
How many countries are you at now?
About 63, 64.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Quite excited about that.
That's good. 40 more. Okay. Yeah, 10 years is doable. 4 countries a year.
So that, and I think about this enterprise, right? So we would like to be in different countries.
Right.
We'd like to be regarded as the new age TCS,
right.
in 10 years.
Right.
TCS established a great brand name for itself.
Why couldn't they make this pivot?
I think that's something that.
In your view, you've studied this space.
No, this is too controversial.
Why haven't any of the old guys? They have everything. They have the riders. They have the warehousing. They have everything. Yet they haven't made this pivot, which you are.
I'm not going to answer that. That's too. I mean, they're my.
What stops them from buying something like this out?
Nothing.
And what stops you from selling something like this?
Nothing. No. It's about the right price, right?
It's about the right price.
So, but I would like to have established this platform with a lot more depth,
right?
With a lot bigger balance sheet size, and across different regions.
Makes sense.
What number do I put against that is not something that I want that to be a driving factor. I just want the scale and the depth of it to be that driving factor. Numbers would follow.
Makes sense. But what I want to counter that with, and I'm going to then segue into closing this out. You mentioned 2000, let's say, you got into this with Mia Textile and all of that. 2021, there was a lot of free money floating around everywhere, right? Everyone had pumped in money around the world because of COVID to keep things alive. That free money made its way into Pakistan, funded a lot of startup businesses, most of which have failed completely, right? Shut down. I mean, they went and the headlines and $300 million raised, blah, blah, blah. Where is all that money today? Where are those startups today? Each of them failed miserably, especially the quick commerce plays that were out there, right? Maybe some have survived. Maybe the food space has survived because there's continuous demand there. Do you think that first of all, why do you think that happened? And do you think we've learned from that? Because it is that space technically that your business plans to serve.
I think why it happened is an obvious answer, because there's a market for it, right? So we are a 250 million population. We're the highest percentage or highest growth rate when it comes to people onboarding onto smartphones. We have, I think, population percentage nahi yaad hai, but we have a major chunk.
140 million with cell phones, 80 or 90 million with mobile broadband connections, and 45 million daily active users.
Okay. And what is the percentage of our population below 21?
We are 60% between the ages of 18 and 25.
25. So that's the reason why it happened.
Yeah.
That's the ethos of it happened. The unfortunate part is that Pakistan, unlike many other countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, India, many other countries that we know about, did not get a longer runway. We got 21 and that's it. If we had a longer runway of similar low interest rates globally for say about 3 to 5 years, we would have been exchanging notes about here.
So you're saying it was a cost of money issue?
I think
It was not an operational and execution issue.
That we never got a chance to test that, right? So we never got a chance. होता क्या कि देखें आपके पास अगर 10 लोगों को पैसे मिलते तो 6 फेल हो जाता है या 7 फेल हो जाते because they didn't have that executional.
No, but I think we got a chance because Airlift ko dekho, it started off as a transportation company that went into a e-commerce company that then went bust because the way they executed was poor and they messed their margins up.
No, I agree with you, and I completely, I don't know much about their insight, but I agree with what you're saying. But what you have to understand is कि हम अगर Airlift को देखे हमें 3 साल और मिलते तो कोई 2 और Airlift 1, Airlift 2, Airlift 3 आती जो बोलती यार हम इनसे बेहतर करेंगे on the execution side. So Airlift 1 शायद fail हो जाती which happened, but maybe the other 3 Airlifts that raised money, not as much or maybe even more, were able to deliver on the execution. So 1 out of those 4 that were doing the same model would have done a better execution of it. So it's not about they came and they failed, hence this model is failed. So they came, they did it not so efficiently, or their execution wasn't up to the mark. But unfortunately, Pakistan does not get an opportunity or that runway where the other 3 that would have come in and done the better execution of it.
Swivels failed.
Swivel is
Munchies, which is a quick commerce business, also failed.
So Swivel globally failed.
Right.
Swivel is not just Pakistan related, right? So Swivel went on the Nasdaq,
right.
went bust because all the tech companies on the listings that year, they went bust. I don't know if they have gone bust or not, but they was doing really badly. So
right.
So आपके पास Munchies structure ठीक नहीं था. You had Unilever that partnered with it. There was a structural issues. They couldn't, when they went out to raise, they couldn't raise when they wanted to raise.
Cheetah is another example.
Cheetah तो सही था. I don't know what Cheetah's story is, but
they didn't survive. They came in strong, but they didn't really. Strong.
But isn't Swift and Cheetah pretty much the same sort of shareholders, same platform, and the same?
There is a back end, but the Cheetah part of it, from what I understood,
okay,
yeah.
But देखिए.
By Kia had a tough time. But they're still surviving. They're that marathon runner who hit a wall but kept going. So I got to give them credit there.
I mean, Munib's a dear friend, and Munib and Rafiq, and I think agar Munib or Rafiq, if there's anybody who could do it, it's Munib and Rafiq. I think that they're really dedicated. They're very hardworking.
But that's one. Look at Kareem and how Kareem has imploded. No one uses Kareem anymore in town. It's all in-driver.
देखे ना इन ड्राइवर आया ना
what I'm saying नहीं मेरा कहने का मकसद ये है
जब किसी की फेलियर होता मैं थोड़ा सा मैं सॉरी मैं
हाँ नहीं बिल्कुल
देखो करीम की ऑपरेशनल डाउनसाइड आई या ऑपरेशनली उसकी वीकनेस आई तो एक नया इन ड्राइव खड़ा होगा ना. मैं सिर्फ ये कहने की सोच रहा हूँ कि जहां अपॉर्चुनिटी होगी वहां कोई खड़ा होगा
जरूर. लेकिन मेरा काउंटर पॉइंट सिर्फ ये है कि आई लव योर बिजनेस आइडिया. आई थिंक इट्स फैंटास्टिक. इन फैक्ट आई एम राइट नाउ थिंकिंग अबाउट इट फॉर इवन लाइक माई हिबा लाइफ. आई एम लाइक वेट अ सेकंड, हाउ वुड दिस वर्क फॉर दैट, राइट? बट माई कंसर्न इज we've not seen operational success in logistics based startups in Pakistan. We are not seeing that. There's no true clear, oh my god, these guys really nailed it. Maybe Food Panda, but look at how long Food Panda is not just a 5-year story. Food Panda has been around for the last 10-12 years, and over time, small, then drawing room se balki Numan ke sath bhi I did this, and how he started that. Eat Oe tha, I think.
Eat Oe, हाँ.
Right? फिर वो tech, ARPA Tech ने उसको लिया, फिर आगे जाके so on and so forth. So वो भी 13, 11, 12 साल की journey है. ठीक है. उसके अलावा क्या है हमारे पास ऑपरेशनल एक्सेलेंस की जो मुझे कमी लगती है. एंड आई कुड बी रॉन्ग, मे बी आई एम ओनली थिंकिंग ऑफ द डाउन साइड स्टोरीज, मे बी देयर आर 1000 अदर्स दैट आर गुड एंड वी नीड टू हाईलाइट दोज. बट अगर ऑपरेशनल एक्सेलेंस की कमी है, विल दैट नॉट अफेक्ट व्हाट यू आर बिल्डिंग, बिकॉज यू आर एंटायरली डिपेंडेंट ऑन देयर ऑपरेशनल एक्सेलेंस अराउंड सेल्स एंड मार्केटिंग एंड कस्टमर एक्विजिशन.
देखिए 3-4 बातें. पहली बात ये कि बहुत सारी सक्सेस स्टोरीज भी हैं. करीम इज पाकिस्तान, ज़मीन.com, देयर आर फूड पैंडा जैसे आपने खुद कहा, दराज, तो देयर आर गुड स्टोरीज आउट देयर. सेहत कहानी, Like मैं आज सुबह भी किसी को कह रहा था कि मैंने कहा सेहत कहानी for me is, and I've been, and the caveat is that I've been involved with them since the seed stage. I think Sarah and Ifat are doing an outstanding job. They're the most underrated.
True. We had
health tech
Ifat on here and talked about it.
In the country. I don't say that to them on their face because वो
Right.
valuation बढ़ा देंगे फिर मसला होगा. But they're the most underrated
I agree.
health tech in the country.
Right.
They're that good. ठीक. मेरा सर देखो फैजान, हम जो एंटरप्रेन्योर होता है ना वो हर चीज़ में अच्छी चीज़ ढूंढते हैं, हर चीज़ में अपॉर्चुनिटी ढूंढते हैं.
Opportunity.
ये हमारे कहते हैं ना हमारे डीएनए में है.
Yeah.
आप जो मैं now how does that pivot into the product that we're selling? क्योंकि इन सब एयरलिफ्ट को देख लो, ये दराज को देख लो, ये जितने को भी देख लो, इन सबका माल बिकता था. So then now the entire industry is focused on
Right.
positive gross profit margin,
Right.
positive contribution. As long as there's a positive contribution, there's a need for our product.
Right.
The next journey is about getting that bottom line positive.
Yeah.
But आज 10 रुपए की चीज 9 की नहीं बिक रही. The entire business model for this entire ecosystem has changed. Now the investors want the 10 रुपए की चीज to be at least selling for 11 if not more.
जो कि पहले नहीं था.
जो पहले नहीं.
क्योंकि सब कहते कस्टमर एक्वायर करो.
Customer. So essentially what happens now is because they're now positive, contributions, now that they're selling, they're now focused on their gross margins. There is now a need for our product. There is a room for our product because that essentially means that we are taking a share of that positive margin that they create.
Right. True. Makes sense.
And the fact that we are fueling their growth means that there's more contribution to amortize their balance sheet expenses, the P&L expenses that comes in between the gross margins and the net profits.
So in a way, what you're saying is it's a good thing that these companies went bust and all of these issues happened because it changed the way investors coming into these businesses are thinking about them, saying that, you know what, don't look at customer growth, look at margins.
Correct.
And the minute they start looking at margins, your business proposition suddenly makes a lot of sense.
हाँ, but मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि वो अच्छा हुआ बस्ट हुई.
वो मैंने कहा था. मैंने भी ये नहीं कहा कि वो अच्छा हुआ बस्ट हुई. They busted और उससे ये learning आई.
हाँ, उससे ये learning आई. उस learning ने इस product की का रूम बनाया और उसने उसकी एक नीड क्रिएट की.
Right.
और उस नीड को ये स्ट्रक्चर क्रिएट कर रहा है और दिस पार्टनरशिप इज एड्रेसिंग दैट नीड.
Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking out the time, Danish. And thank you for tuning into Digitail. Stay tuned for the next episode. Subscribe to the channel below and share comments and feedback. Love to hear from you guys. See you next week. Bye.